Okay, so it's just turned 12 o'clock, so we'll get started. So welcome to the Positive Partnerships webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Wellbeing and Resilience. So we begin by acknowledging and paying our respects to the traditional custodians of each of the countries we are logging in from today. We pay tribute to them and their elders, both past and present, and to future leaders. We welcome all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people online with us today. So welcome everyone. My name is Alison and I'm one of your facilitators today along with Laura. We also have Rachel and Linda online who will be moderating for us and supporting anyone with audio or computer issues. If you are having technical difficulties, please call Rachel on 0481 906 946 and she'll be able to help you, or you can write a message in our text box. So we will start today with a poll to find out more about who is attending this webinar, and our poll question is, in what capacity are you attending this webinar? And I'll start it now. If you just select one of the options by clicking the box. So we've got some professionals, school staff members, parent carers, students. So a nice variety of people attending with us today. Thank you everyone. I'll stop the poll now. So we begin by giving you some information about how to use the webinar tools. Now, some of you may have already participated in a webinar, and for some of you, this may be a new experience. There are a few tools that you can access that we will explore now. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see your name. Looking now to the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you will see an icon of a person. You can click on the menu to change your icon to a few different options. You may want to change your icon to a coffee cup, or just maybe a smiley face if you're happy to be joining us today. I see Linda has a coffee cup next to hers, and Laura's just changed hers to a smiley face. Now, just above the icon is a text box, and it seems like a lot of you have found that already. Throughout the webinar, you are welcome to type questions or comments or feedback for other participants in this text box. There will be times during the webinar that we will ask you to share your thoughts or experiences, and we encourage you to interact by typing in this box. Please be mindful that a webinar is a unique learning experience, and it's different to learning and sharing face-to-face. Give yourself this hour to be present and focused. It's easy to get distracted, so we encourage you to make the most of this opportunity. Now, at times, there may be moments of silence for you to think and reflect on what has been said. And we will not also be able to answer all questions and find solutions in this hour for everyone's issues in our session today. Positive Partnerships does not come from an expert model, but rather hope that you may use the ideas generated, information and tools shared, and apply them as relevant to you following the webinar. We value the fact that parents and staff know their children better than anyone. A link to the recording of this webinar will be available on the website in a few days' time, and all the resources and links will be shared today will be emailed to you all. So we just ask you to make the most of this time in the best way possible for you, and we hope that you walk away with at least one new learning idea or strategy. Now, a little more about yourself, just to give everyone an idea of where we're all from and the age range of the young people we're supporting or working with. So I'm going to put up another poll, and this poll is going to be asking you to fill in which state you're from. So I'll just put the poll up now. So let's see where everyone is logging in from. So we've got a few from New South Wales, Canberra, ACT, Queensland, Tasmania, Victoria and WA. So nobody from South Australia or the Northern Territory today. Now, just to give you some context of where we're from, we're actually both located in Sydney, and that's where we are logging on from today, and Rachel and Linda are in Queensland. So in the text box, if you'd just like to write the age range of the young people you're working with or your young person on the spectrum today, just so we get a sense of the age range of the young people. So we've got 5 to 12 years old, P to 12, 10, 5 to 12, 8, 5 to 12. So it's quite a common age range, 4 to 9, 2 to 7. Thank you. So what will we go through today? Our session intentions will focus on looking at how the characteristics of autism may have direct impacts on the individual's ability to develop and maintain positive well-being and resilience. For young people on the autism spectrum, they may have added difficulties in the area of developing a positive sense of well-being. We will also discuss how the need to have friends varies from person to person. We will look at strategies, programs, and resources that can support young people on the spectrum to learn about resilience and develop the skills necessary to identify times of difficulty and ways of working through this. We will also focus on the importance of working together with your school to ensure everyone understands the unique impacts of autism on the individual. We do have a diverse range of groups participating today, including parents, teachers, family members, and professionals. Some of you may also be individuals on the autism spectrum. Now, at times throughout this webinar, we'll be asking you to share your personal insights and general life experiences. Given the nature of our topic today, we ask that you only share what you feel comfortable via the text box, as these discussions can sometimes be challenging and may bring up many of your own feelings and experiences. There is no need to share it all today if you just wish to watch and listen. We do find that when people do share, it helps a connection point between us as facilitators and you as participants, and also between participants. So just take a moment to read the quote on the screen. Now, looking at that quote, we're going to ask you to type in the text box and answer this question. What do you think well-being is? So we've got healthy mind, body, and spirit. Feeling positive about the things and able to cope. Thank you, Wendy. Feeling safe. Thank you, Tegan. A combination of social, emotional, and physical. Thank you, Lucia. Live in happiness and satisfaction. Thank you, Pat. Feeling positive, finding meaning in life, connection with others. Health in all facets of your life. So we know that well-being comprises things like mental health, which according to the World Health Organization is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential and can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So rather than being about what's the problem, it's really about what's going well. And that's a quote from Beyond Blue. It's also comprised of physical wellness. So overall, physical wellness encourages the balance of physical activity, nutrition, and mental well-being to keep your body in top condition. Another part of well-being is academic wellness, and that is having a feeling of control and being content with academic pursuits, possibly even feeling safe and happy at school. It comprises environmental wellness, and this is what inspires us to live a lifestyle that is respectful of our surroundings. Environmental well-being promotes interaction with nature and your personal environment. Well-being is about feeling safe, and it's also about feeling forming meaningful relationships. And this is what comprises well-being. Now, if we look further to think about resilience, resilience is a way to describe the quality of something that goes back to its original form after it has been bent or stretched. It is also a popular term used to describe a psychological quality in people. Resilience has been described as the capacity to cope with change and challenge and bounce back during difficult times. You may have heard the term bouncing back used in this sense. So we have for resilience, optimism, attitude, emotional awareness, control, social support, sense of humour, self-belief, and ability to problem solve. So with this in mind, resilience may be seen as dealing with hardships and still holding your head up, giving things a go or trying your best, being strong on the inside, being able to cope with what life throws at you and shrug it off, or maybe even standing up for yourself. So thinking with these concepts and thinking about what's displayed on the screen, why might developing resilience be more difficult for young people on the autism spectrum? Please share your thoughts in the text box. So we've got challenges with self-regulation from Wendy. Lack of emotional maturity from Helen. We've got need for routine and knowing what's happening from Linda. Laura's put young people on the autism spectrum may have difficulty navigating social cues and therefore have challenges with social support. Carmel's put in theory of mind. Lucia's put in lack of awareness of self. Elizabeth has put in ability to bounce back. Marion has put in unable to read social cues affecting social connections. And Stella has put in difficulty understanding others. So we can see that there's many reasons why resilience might be harder for those on the autism spectrum. And it's important that we put in frameworks and supports to help those on the autism spectrum develop resilience. Now, the other thing to realize is that ups and downs are a normal part of life, and there may be many times when people feel stretched or under pressure. And challenges in life can range from easy to manage and causing a small amount of stress to very stressful, such as a trauma or a crisis. What might seem like a mild pressure to one person may be very difficult for another. And likewise, what seems unbearable to one person may be managed fairly easily by another. So for example, you may have heard someone's story and thought to yourself, well, if that was me, I don't know how I would have coped. Or you might have thought, well, what's the big deal and what are they so worried about? There really is a range in coping and in how you interpret. So let's take some time to read the quote on the slide. Now, building on the quote, thinking of the work by Jeanette Purkis, she's an adult with lived experience on the autism spectrum who has written books and ongoing blogs around the well-being and resilience and the added layers that autism brings to this. So we were lucky enough to listen to Jeanette at APAC 2017, where she clearly stated that autism itself is not a mental health condition, although some people on the autism spectrum do have mental health conditions. Oh, I'll read it out for those that can't see the right-hand side. So the slide says, people with Asperger's syndrome may be prone to getting upset over so-called trivial things, because most of the time, even in our normal state, we are overwhelmed and confused. When something doesn't quite fit the standard, follow a rule, or have a reason, everything becomes even more confusing. So thinking of the slide and thinking of Jeanette's work, we've got to the point where she said that although people on the autism spectrum do have a mental health condition, we must realize that assumptions are unhealthy. However, research shows that people on the autism spectrum are more susceptible to experiencing a mental health condition, such as anxiety and depression. So why might developing and maintaining positive wellbeing and resilience be more difficult for those on the spectrum? So let's share our thoughts in the text box. So we've got difficulties with social communication and reading non-verbals from Wendy. A need for perfection from Laura. And that can also be mixed with anxiety and a fear of failure. Theory of mind complexities from Liz. The need to follow routines from Pat. Emotional regulation, social communication from Anne. So it's really about maybe a misdiagnosis between what is autism and what is mental illness. This can happen sometimes and can cause more difficulties for those on the spectrum. It can also be around sensory issues, that those on the spectrum have accompanying sensory issues and that can cause more difficulties. As Laura said, around perfectionism, anxiety around change, and the response of others to behaviours. So what happens? How do others respond if someone is having a behaviour such as a meltdown or a shutdown? So one way that we can support is by using strengths and interests. And this is a suggestion that we have had, which is to create a happy box. And a happy box is a collection of items that makes the person happy as a way of dealing with more difficult times. The building of this happy box is a great way to incorporate the individual voice, as they are directly involved in choosing the items for it. I'm now going to hand over to Laura, and who will further explore this topic with you.
Hi, everybody. I'll just check that everyone can hear me. If you can just put a yes in the comment box. Perfect. Okay. So PP, our Positive Partnerships, has a podcast series of some real stories of 6 people from across Australia, each with a connection to autism. This is free and available for Apple iTunes. We're going to listen to an excerpt from a podcast now. So if you have dialed in from your phone, please turn the volume up on your computer so that you can hear the podcast. After the clip is played, please turn your volume down again so that you don't receive any feedback. In this podcast, Kirsty speaks honestly and openly about her hopes and dreams for her children and how happiness for her children is her greatest hope. So we'll just play the podcast now. Okay, so please feel free to pop on and listen to that podcast in its entirety in your own time. We're now going to move on to looking at the characteristics of autism and how that can impact on the individual's ability to build and maintain positive well-being and develop skills in resilience. So I'm going to go through each of these characteristics, and feel free to type in the text box any comments that you have about the young person that you work with or that you're the parent of, and how their characteristics might impact on their well-being and resilience. So we'll start with communication. This includes the difficulties in expressing both your needs or wants, and then on top of this, being able to comprehend the message received from others. Communication difficulties can lead to frustration and isolation for all involved when communicating. The young person can also miss key messages or maybe not have the skills to be able to check in to clarify with situations with their peers or teachers. Also adding to this complexity are the many and varied non-verbal signals constantly transmitted through communication, and lots of people commented on those social and non-verbal cues before. The way we communicate our feelings and state of well-being is crucial to our own well-being and connection with others. When we think about social interaction, and there is that spectrum all the way from aloof through to passive, and then super interested or unusually interested in social interactions. And as we discussed, social interaction plays a strong role in an individual's well-being. Some individuals on the autism spectrum find sharing and turn-taking difficult, especially depending on the interest level of the items involved. The unpredictability of peers in general is very complex, and this is often why we see students on the autism spectrum gravitate towards adults, because they may be more predictable, or younger children with less developed play skills who may be more willing to accept the rules of an older child or be more willing to be told what and directed in what to do. Therefore, a strong social connection may be with a familiar adult rather than peers for our young people on the autism spectrum. And when we think about this in relation to well-being, the importance of social interaction is being able to connect and interact with one or two people of importance, or one or two people that are like-minded and form a peer group with that young person on the spectrum. So some characteristics around restricted interests and repetitive behaviours. For individuals on the autism spectrum, these can often be characterised by a focus on objects or specific interest areas and less on relationships with people. This can often lead to a one-sided and repetitive conversation on one topic, and it can be challenging for peers to stay engaged, as well as for the young person to be able to maintain a sense of balance with that conversation or that interaction. This fixation on a specific interest may have both a positive impact and a negative impact on the young person's sense of well-being. So on one hand, having strong interests can lead to greater connection with like-minded peers and therefore in turn well-being. On the other hand, it may lead to isolation if others don't share similar interests. If anyone would like to comment in the text box about how a special interest or a restricted interest has been a positive for a social connection of their young person, please feel free to comment. So we'll move on to sensory processing. Depending on the individual, sensory sensitivities of people on the autism spectrum may impact their ability to be involved in certain activities, and we touched on this earlier through the text box. When social settings are new or unpredictable, we may see behaviours occur that are often interpreted as challenging. For example, running away from a crowded shopping centre due to noise and light sensitivities. Sensory processing also includes proprioception, which involves the muscles and joints. Difficulty processing this sensory information may mean the individual has challenges in coordination or ball skills. And we can see that this could impact on them developing connections and relationships with peers, especially in school-aged students. So the ability to self-regulate sensory processing issues can have an impact on both the individual's well-being and development of their own resilience. And there's a comment there, 16 is engaged well at church, the youth group, she's made good connections, supports and friendships there. Well, that's fantastic, thanks for sharing. So we're now going to look at learning styles, or that bottom row there, intellectual ability / IQ. So an example here is the difficulty that individuals on the spectrum face around executive functioning. Executive functioning is the ability to develop and maintain skills in planning and organising. And this can impact on the young person's ability to feel in control of their learning and to demonstrate their learning and so on, which again can add to the ability to continue to try and persevere and lead to a general sense of well-being. So if our young people aren't feeling in control of their learning and that they're able to demonstrate what they've learned, they may be less resilient to trying again and having another go, which can impact on their well-being. So we can explore the characteristics of autism and this diversity of autism slide on an individual level, and we would see that no two individuals will have the same characteristics. As we add into that the very complex layers of friendships, we can see that there isn't any wonder why socialising can be quite confusing for many of us, and especially for our young people on the spectrum. And as we have said before, it is important that your knowledge of yourself and your child in regard to home and school is really at the core of everything that you do when trying to think about ways to build on their resilience and their well-being. So we're going to move on to now a really good tool that we can use to document the diversity of autism, and that's called the planning matrix. So please use or just say yes if you've heard in the text box if you've heard about the planning matrix or if you've used it before, either in one of our workshops, a webinar, or at your school. Great, so there's a few yeses popping up there, lots of yeses, that's fantastic. So it's great to hear or see that so many people have heard of the planning matrix. We'll send you a link following this webinar of where you can access the online learning module that we have about the planning matrix. So for anyone that hasn't seen it before or would like to maybe go a little bit more in depth with it, that module will be sent around. And everyone can use the planning matrix to highlight the individual characteristics of someone on the autism spectrum, and unpacking the impacts of these characteristics and exploring the strategies to support them can be really useful. So we're just going to have a look now at this first row. We often see incidents of the individual and when we're looking at, the impact row, we often see instances of the individual and frustrations of peers. So this may also impact on teasing and bullying occurring. Sometimes a young person's vulnerability in their social interaction and communication skills predisposes them to being the victim of teasing and bullying. However, sometimes it can also be the child on the autism spectrum that is the perpetrator. Either being as a bully or being as a friend, when really it's the other way around, and it's the misinterpretations of these actions that can maybe lead to this misunderstanding. But by filling in and sharing the planning matrix, we can start to identify what influences someone's ability to understand and make and maintain friendships, including how to support an individual through challenging situations such as bullying. So we're going to think about now some tips to build resilience. So the key to addressing wellbeing and resilience for children on the autism spectrum is to teach and embed skills in day-to-day living from a young age. You might start by choosing an activity that you know your child can succeed at with some support from you, something they are interested in and keen to do, and you can help to build up their confidence and then in turn their independence. You could make connections with a passion or interest area and a strength of that child. It's important to make sure that the challenges are not too hard at first. So if at first unable, it's best to not force them to do it or make a big deal of it, but just explain that we all need time and practice to learn new skills. As your child learns and builds confidence, you might like to set slightly harder challenges and help them build on those and learn again the new skill to become even more competent and independent. Being positive and rewarding your child as they work through each challenge can be really effective in motivating them to want to learn more and build on their skills. And always using your judgment and your knowledge of your own child to guide the process is really important. Autism-specific strategies such as creating visual supports to support your young person if needed can really help in assisting in reducing anxiety. So we're going to have a bit of a sharing now, and we'd like to encourage you to use the text box to comment on what are some of the strategies that you are currently using or have used in the past to help build resilience in your young person. It might have been when, as the previous slide showed, you were helping them to learn to ride their bike. What kind of strategies did you use to encourage them to keep trying to build that independence and confidence? And it's great to see there that when using the planning matrix, we use to be positive in the comments and what the child can do. That's exactly right, yeah. Providing meaningful and regular positive feedback. Thank you, Wendy. Social stories, it's okay. Agreed, yep. Constant encouragement. Playing the drums, which you really enjoyed. That's great. Building on those strengths and interests is so important. Because I guess the skills that they start to know and develop when they're building their confidence and independence on something that they're interested in, they can then transfer to when they're maybe needing to have some of those resilience strategies and something that they're not so interested in or that is a bit more of a challenge to them. It's okay to make mistakes to learn. You can't learn unless you make mistakes. That's exactly right. Someone once said to me that the word fail stands for your first attempt in learning, and I think that's a really good thing to remember, that it's never a failure, it's just an attempt at learning something new, and we can just keep building on what we learned from our first attempts. Help them through transition by using timers. Yeah, that's great. So lots of good strategies there. And some more are perhaps to create a chart of the steps involved in a new or familiar activity and tick off each step as it's mastered or achieved. Have a feelings record when we try something new and revisit each time the activity is attempted. So it can be as simple as smiley faces or a written record. How did you feel when you had to go that time? How does it feel the next time you have a try? Lots of opportunities to practice, and sometimes it requires some really specific scaffolding and those use of those visual supports to explain exactly what each step is required. helping the child to reflect on past successes, that's a great one as well. Yeah, fantastic, more manageable steps. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to look now at looking after yourself. So recognising and acknowledging your own mental fitness can help to identify what could support you in your support of others. And having a plan for looking after yourself can be really important. Think for a minute, and this will be a little bit of reflective time. So think for a minute, when was the last time that you did something for you? And feel free to share in the text box what that was. So some nice sharing going on there. We also will provide a link to 100 ways of looking after yourself, which has some tips that you might be able to look at and think, oh, I can take one of those just to myself this week, and spend some time thinking about your own mental fitness so that you can be at your best to support others. Thanks for sharing, everybody. Okay, so we're going to have a look at 4 books here, and the first one is Promoting Child and Parent Wellbeing, How to Use Evidence and Strengths-Based Strategies in Practice. So this book has been informed by a wealth of research. It's very accessible and focuses on a strengths-based approach to promoting children's wellbeing and giving them the best opportunities to succeed. By identifying risk factors and the protective factors which can be used to counter them, this book stresses the importance of preventative measures and early intervention to effectively support parents and their children. It shows that there are many factors and practices that parents, teachers and carers can employ to support children's development, promote mental and emotional well-being. The next one is the resilience factor, and this book is that resilience is a crucial ingredient, perhaps the crucial ingredient to a happy, healthy life. More than anything else, it's what determines how high we rise above what threatens to wear us down, from battling an illness to boistering a marriage to carrying on after a national crisis. Everyone needs resilience. And now 2 expert psychologists share 7 proven techniques for enhancing our capacity to weather even the cruelest setbacks. A book with ideas for those on the autism spectrum as well as those supporting them. The next one is Freaks, Geeks and Asperger's Syndrome by Luke Jackson. And drawing from his own experiences and gaining information from his teenage brother and sisters, he wrote this enlightening, honest and witty book in an attempt to address difficult topics such as bullying, friendships, when and how to tell others about autism, school problems, dating and relationships. So that's another good one to have a look at. And the last one is, A Practical Guide to Resilience for Children aged 2 to 10. Sorry, everybody, my phone just cut out there. I'm back again. So the last book there was about the challenges around the diagnosis of autism in a young person that unintentionally can lead to dependence and a lack of resilience and confidence. Children and young people with autism have the capacity to be independent and resilient, which can help them live independently or be supported to live a fulfilling life. The crucial work of building these skills in children with autism can begin at a very young age. The earlier the process starts, the better. And this book empowers parents of children on the autism spectrum, aged 2 to 10, to help them promote resilience in their child. Okay, so here's some further resources. This is the Raising Children Network. So there are some useful websites, and you're welcome to click on each of the links and save them to your favourites. So they'll just be popping up there. But the Raising Children Network is a really good one. It says that when young people are resilient, they cope better with difficult situations. They bounce back when things go wrong. Young people need resilience to navigate life's up and down, so building resilience is an important part of adolescence development. And the other one there is Beyond Blue. So it is for children aged 6 to 12 years, and it's got some information there about raising resilient children. So from learning about emotions to helping your child manage anxious feelings, when it comes to primary school kids, this information has really got you covered. So there are 2 websites to check out there. Another one is our website. So we offer a range of courses for parents and professionals, as well as fact sheets and all of our workshop tools to download. In particular, there is an information module of making friends and bullying, as well as a range of other topics that you can explore further. We also have a Making Friends app available from the App Store to download free onto your iPhone, and our Djambi app as well, which is available for tablets and iPad. Our homepage, which you can see here, is where parents and carers will be able to register for our up-and-coming workshops. We will share the state and territory flyers in the text box too, so you can see which ones are coming up for the remainder of the year. Although it is getting close to the end of the year, so there's not many left, but please keep checking in with our Facebook page, because you'll find all of our workshops advertised there and also on our website. Okay, we're now going to share this film clip, and as we near the end of our webinar, we invite you to think about how we can change something that might be seen as a negative into a positive. So we'll play this video for you all, just remembering to take your computer off mute so that you can hear the audio. Okay, so that was a lovely clip, and we do love that one. And Specialist are a Danish company who work with other companies to employ young people on the autism spectrum in jobs that are really suited to their strengths and interests and their characteristics. It's we love how it turns with perhaps negative comments that sometimes might be made into real positives and strengths, and it's a good way. Oh, thanks, Carmel. Yeah, you can Google the Dandelion Project. Okay, so as we come to the end now, if you'd like to share any of your final thoughts on that clip, please do so in the comment box. But we are also going to take a moment to put the survey up. So this survey is completely anonymous, and it should only take 2 minutes of your time. We'll upload it to the text box. We really value your feedback. Even if you've already participated in a webinar before, we like to get feedback on each of them. So we appreciate and thank you for taking the time to fill that out. If anyone has anything else they'd like to comment on in the comment box, the moderators and the facilitators will be here to try and answer and make any extra comments in the final moments now. So we'll leave that text box open for the next 10 minutes. But otherwise, thank you everyone for today. And just as a final thought, we'd like to encourage you to reflect on those 3 questions. So what have you learnt today? What questions do you still have? And what am I going to do now? So moving forward, what have you taken away from today and learnt about that you might like to do some further research into or follow up about with the young person that you work with or care for? Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the comments. And yeah, we do encourage you to pop on and do that survey now. And that will be the close of our webinar. Thank you.